Okay, so check, 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 check. All right. Analyzing writing prompts. So for you guys, it's going to be, what am I being asked to do? That's what you're figuring out. You're going to be given a question, or as we say, a writing prompt. And then, you're going to figure out what it is I'm going to be asked to do, because that way you're not constantly coming back to me, teacher, what do you want me to do? You can do this on your own. Of course, starting out in the school year, we're going to be doing it together, but you guys are going to eventually do this on your own. So our first step in figuring out what am I being asked to do. Step 1, circle the verb in your prompt. For example, summarize, list, explain, identify. Those are all verbs that are commonly used in our writing prompt. So the first one we have here is summarize the events in the story. So I'm going to circle that. And you may want to color code the way that you do your annotations. This is called annotation. When I add some writing to a piece of writing or something, it's called an annotation. So I write something and then I annotate it. I write something on it to make sure that I'm reminding myself of something. So the prompt, summarize the events in the story. So there's my verb, summarize. And you know what summarize is, right? To take something and to pare it down to just its essentials and write it in our own way, but in a way that other people will understand, right? So summarize the events of the story. Step 2, underline the task. Underline what the prompt is asking you to do. If there is a who, what, where, why type question in the prompt, write the question into a statement that begins with a verb. That is, use verbs like identify and or explain for who, what, where, and why questions. So I'm going to have 2 examples down here. So one is from the first one we did. And I'm going to say prompt, summarize the events of the story. So we already, circle the verb again. This time I'm going to underline. I'm going to use a different color. I'm going to use blue. I'm going to summarize the events of the story. So summarize the events. Right? Summarize the events in the story. What happened and when. Right? I'm not going to rewrite the story. I'm just going to summarize. I'm going to write briefly what happened, each event, and give a explanation of what happened. This next one is we're gonna analyze it and break it down even more. Who and what is the story about? Remember, we're going to use verbs like identify and or explain for who, what, where, why. So who and what is the story about? It's kind of general, right? But we can break it down further. So it's like who and what are 2 different things, right? So I'm going to say identify who the story is about. See, I used that. So I thought, okay, that verb probably works in place of who. Identify who the story is about. Right? So we will go back to my red pen and circle identify. Even though it's one that I put in myself, I can still identify who the story is about, right? And I underline the task. Identify who the story is about, right? And I'm going to go up here and use my red pen again. Explain what the story is about. See? So what? So in this question, I actually have 2 things I need to do. I need to say who is the story about and what the story is about. So I divided those up, right? Because those are 2 tasks in the same question. So explain what the story is about. Explain what the story is about. That's my task, right? Moving on. So once you've done that, you've underlined your task, you've identified your verbs, or you've put verbs in place of who, what, where, and why questions, right? You've underlined your task. Number your verbs. Essentially, number your tasks. What am I going to do first? Go back and number each of the verbs you circled. Number your verbs in the order you write about them. If your writing prompt has more than one, right? If your writing prompt has more than one. So again, identify who the story is about. I accidentally wrote that too many times, but we're just going to go down here and say, identify who the story is about. Explain what the story is about, right? And we underlined it. Explain, identify what this, explain what the story is about, right? And I'm going to number them now, right? I use my black pen. This is my first task. This is my second task, right? 1 and 2. Either that, or you could say my first verb, my second verb. Either way, we're going from verbs to task, right? This is my first task. This is my second task. Here's another explain the motivations of the main character, right? We do that one. Circle. I'm going to explain. What do we mean by explain? Right? We're going to put in our own words what we think, the why of what this character is doing, right? Explain. Why is he doing it? We're answering that question. Why is he doing what he's doing? Explain the motivations of the main character, right? So, identify who, explain what the story is about, explain, maybe those would all be part of the same assignment. So that would be my third task, right? Okay, moving on. Number 4, box your audience. Draw a box around the stated audience. If the prompt did not state your audience, write it in a formal tone. That is, if there's no audience stated, then assume your audience is mainly your teacher, because that's the person who's evaluating your writing, right? That's the main person. Of course, you can share with your peers and later parents. In short, you're writing for everyone, so you're going to use your best academic writing, right? You're writing it for the world. And when we write for the world, we want the whole world to know just how smart we are, right? You're going to use your best academic writing. So, explain the story to, so I circle my verb, explain the story to a friend. I'm going to underline the task, explain the story. And I'm going to box my audience to a friend, right? Oops, I'll try to make that a little better. A friend. I'm explaining the story to a friend, right? Here's another example where the audience isn't stated. So, of course, I'm going to assume that it's mainly for the person who's evaluating you, right? Identify. Identify. That's what I'm being. Identify the physical traits, anatomy of the brown snake. Brown snake isn't my audience, right? It's what I'm identifying. Identify, that is to say, tell me what parts of the anatomy of brown snake has. Right? So in black, I'm just going to go over here and I can do a couple things. I can say, okay, that's going to be formal, right? Formal. That is to say, I'm going to use my best academic writing because I'm mainly writing for my teacher, right? Sometimes you're going to be asked to write letters, you're going to be asked to write letters and things like that. And those are mainly for people like, your friends, your parents, loved ones, etc. But we can also write more formal letters. So this is an example of what, okay, I'm assuming that it's going to be for my teacher, right? Teacher, anyone in the end, it's going to be sent out to the world, right? Because your parents are going to read it, and you maybe going to share it with your friends, right? Maybe you're going to publish it in a magazine once you think you've got it up to snuff. Who knows? Lots of things you can do. right? Nothing says that your writing only has to be for academia. You can share it with the world. All right, and I hope that helps you. You can review this as many times as you like. It'll be up